All right, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the world's biggest vault, a financial fortress that holds the emergency funds for entire nations. Let's get right into it.
Take a look at this number, $13 trillion. That's the absolutely colossal size of the world's combined international reserves. It's a financial safety net on a scale that's, well, it's pretty hard to imagine. But what is it really? And why on earth do countries feel the need to have a savings account this massive?
So, putting it simply, international reserves are basically a country's piggy bank of foreign stuff. Mostly foreign currencies like the US dollar and, of course, gold, all held by their central bank. You gotta think of it as a literal financial shield, ready to be whipped out at a moment's notice to protect the economy from getting hit by major financial shocks.
Okay, so how do we even get to a $13 trillion fortress? Well, for a lot of countries, especially the emerging economies, the answer is kind of written in the scars left by some really painful past crises.
You see, a series of hard knocks taught countries a crucial lesson. Self-insurance is survival. The 1997 Asian financial crisis was a huge wake-up call. Countries like South Korea literally ran out of US dollars and had to accept some pretty tough bailouts from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Then, a decade later, the 2008 global financial crisis hit, and it became super clear that countries with big reserves handled that storm way, way better. And of course, most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic showed just how vital these reserves are when the entire world economy when it just stopped.
Brazil's story is just a perfect example of this whole journey. Back in 2002, their reserves were critically low. The country was vulnerable, totally dependent on the IMF. But fast forward to today, it's a completely different picture. A massive stockpile of reserves has given Brazil a level of financial independence that was basically unthinkable just a couple of decades ago.
But here's the thing. This financial shield, this big national insurance policy, it comes with a really steep and often hidden price tag.
And this brings us to a huge trade-off. I mean, what is the real cost of keeping hundreds of billions of dollars locked away in some low-yield foreign account? Instead of, investing that same money at home in things like better roads, schools, or hospitals.
To really get the cost, just look at this gap. See, to build up all those reserves, a central bank usually has to borrow money in its own currency. So for a country like Brazil, it might be earning a pretty low interest rate on its reserves, let's say 5%. But it's paying a much, much higher rate, maybe around 15%, on the domestic debt it took out to buy those reserves in the first place. That negative difference has a name. It's called the carry cost.
And that cost? It's staggering. For Brazil, this gap creates an annual fiscal burden of $30 to $36 billion. Now get this, that's more than the entire country spends on public education every single year. All that money just to keep its financial shield polished.
Now, for decades, countries were willing to pay this crazy high price for what they thought was foolproof security. But then, in 2022, one single event exposed a massive flaw in that insurance policy, and it turned the entire concept of financial safety completely on its head.
For as long as pretty much anyone can remember, this is what financial safety looked like. The huge majority of global reserves were held in US dollars, euros, and other currencies controlled by Western powers. This was, without question, considered the safest portfolio on the entire planet. Until it wasn't.
Then, February 2022 happened. In a totally unprecedented move, after the invasion of Ukraine, Western nations worked together to freeze around $300 billion of the Russian central bank's reserves. Just like that, overnight, half of the financial shield of a G20 nation, one of the world's largest economies, was made completely useless.
The shockwave from this is, it's still being felt today. I mean, imagine your home insurance company just refusing to pay out on a claim because they don't agree with your politics. That's basically what happened here. The lesson was brutal and clear. Your financial insurance policy can be canceled by the very countries you bought it from.
So, where do we go from here? This one event has forced every single central banker on the planet to face a new, and honestly, a much more complicated reality.
The old playbook? It's been thrown out the window. Now, central bankers are grappling with some really tough questions. Is the US dollar still the ultimate safe asset? Or is physical gold, stored within your own borders, the only thing that's truly sanction-proof? And this leads to even bigger questions. Are we heading toward a fragmented system with different currency blocks competing with each other? And will countries now have to choose geopolitical friends over pure financial sense? These are the strategic dilemmas that are shaping a new world order.
And it all really boils down to this one question. In a world that feels increasingly divided and uncertain, the very definition of a safe asset is being rewritten right before our eyes. How countries answer this question will define the next era of global money.
This intersection of geopolitics, finance, and technology is reshaping everything faster than ever. If you want to stay ahead of these massive shifts, make sure you follow our channel, Macroeconomia, and definitely turn on those notifications.
And finally, just a quick disclaimer. This explainer is for educational purposes only, and it is absolutely not financial advice. As we always say in economics, past performance is no guarantee of future results. Thanks for watching.